19.3 inches in 24 hours, Syracuse, New York. December 30th, 2025. An all-time single-day snowfall record, not just for December, not just for winter. An all-time record for any single day in recorded history. Buffalo measured 18 to 30 inches in different locations depending on exact band position. Erie, Pennsylvania saw similar totals. Watertown is approaching 3 feet cumulative, and the snow is still falling. This is lake effect snow. And if you don't live near the Great Lakes, you might not understand why these areas are getting absolutely buried, while locations 50 miles away see almost nothing. At the 10-minute mark, I'm explaining exactly how lake effect snow works and why certain neighborhoods get feet while others get inches. At the 18-minute mark, I'm showing you why this particular event is so extreme and what makes it different from normal lake effect. If you could comment your city and state, especially if you're in a lake effect zone, it helps me understand who's dealing with this and who needs specific information. December 31st, 2025. And we're in the middle of one of the most significant lake effect snow events in years. Let me start by explaining what lake effect snow is, because if you're not from the Great Lakes region, this might be completely foreign to you. Lake effect snow requires 3 things. First, cold air. Second, relatively warm lake water. Third, wind direction that carries moisture from the lake over land. Here's how it works. Cold Arctic air moves south from Canada. This air is very cold, maybe 0 degrees or below. As this cold air moves across the Great Lakes, which are still relatively warm at around 35 to 40 degrees, something happens. The temperature difference between the cold air and the warm water creates massive instability. Warm, moist air rises rapidly off the lake surface. As it rises, it cools. As it cools, the moisture condenses and forms clouds. Lots of clouds, deep clouds, clouds that produce heavy snow. The wind carries these snow-producing clouds over the lake. The longer the distance the air travels over water, the more moisture it picks up. This distance is called fetch. Lake Ontario has long fetch when winds are from the west or northwest. Lake Erie has long fetch when winds are from the southwest or west. When these moisture-loaded clouds reach land, they dump snow. Heavy snow. At rates that can reach 2 to 3 inches per hour in the heaviest bands. But here's the key thing about lake effect snow. It's incredibly localized. The bands of heavy snow are narrow, maybe 5 to 15 miles wide. If you're directly in a band, you get buried. If you're just outside the band, you might see almost nothing. This is why Syracuse can measure 19 inches while Rome, 30 miles away, measures 3 inches. This is why one side of Buffalo gets 2 feet while the other side gets 6 inches. It all depends on exactly where the band's set up. And bands don't always move. Sometimes a band sets up in one location and just sits there for hours. When that happens, snowfall totals become incredible. Rates of 2 to 3 inches per hour sustained for 6 to 12 hours can produce 2 to 3 feet of snow in one spot. That's what's happening right now. Northwest winds are howling across Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. The fetch is perfect. The temperature difference between air and water is extreme. And the bands are persistent. Buffalo, you're in the primary zone for Lake Erie effect. The band is positioned south and southeast of the city. Some neighborhoods have seen 30 inches. Other neighborhoods have seen 8 inches. It all depends on whether you're in the band or between bands. Syracuse, Watertown, the Tug Hill Plateau, you're getting destroyed by Lake Ontario effect. The band positioned over you has been producing 2 to 3 inch per hour rates for extended periods. This is why Syracuse shattered its all-time single-day record. Someone commented that Tug Hill should be recognized by name instead of saying between Syracuse and Watertown. You're absolutely right. Tug Hill is legendary. It averages over 200 inches of snow per year. It's the snowiest place east of the Rockies. When northwest winds cross Lake Ontario, Tug Hill gets absolutely buried. Right now, some locations on Tug Hill have received over 3 feet from this event. Erie, Pennsylvania, you're in a similar situation to Buffalo. Lake Erie effect band is sitting over you and not moving, 18 to 30 inches depending on exactly where you are. Travel is extremely difficult to impossible. Northwestern Pennsylvania also deserves specific mention. Someone commented that they're not Western New York and Mother Nature loves dumping on them. Correct. You get Lake Erie effect just as hard as Buffalo, sometimes harder, and you deserve recognition. Now, I promised at the 10-minute mark I'd explain why certain neighborhoods get buried while others don't. We're past that, so let me deliver more detail. Lake effect snowbands are like rivers of snow in the sky. They have a source, which is the lake. They have a path, which is determined by wind direction. And they have edges. If you're inside the river, you get soaked. If you're outside the river, you stay relatively dry. Wind direction determines where the band sets up. Northwest winds off Lake Ontario hit different areas than west winds. A 5-degree shift in wind direction can move a band 10 miles. That 10-mile shift is the difference between 2 feet of snow and 6 inches. Topography also matters. Hills and mountains enhance lake effect. Rising terrain forces air to rise even more, which increases snowfall rates. This is why the Tug Hill Plateau gets such extreme amounts. The plateau rises from Lake Ontario's shore. Air is forced to rise over the plateau. That rising motion enhances snow production dramatically. Valleys can channel lake effect bands. Certain valleys funnel the flow and concentrate the snow. Some towns are positioned perfectly to get hammered by lake effect repeatedly because of how local topography channels the flow. This is why people who live in lake effect zones learn very quickly which neighborhoods get hit hardest. You might have 2 grocery stores 5 miles apart, and one consistently gets 2 feet while the other gets 6 inches. Locals know. They plan around it. Now, let me talk about what makes this particular event so extreme. First, the temperature difference between air and water is large. The air is well below zero. The water is still around 40 degrees. That 40-degree or more temperature difference creates massive instability. The larger the temperature difference, the more vigorous the lake effect. Second, the winds are strong and persistent. Sustained winds of 20 to 30 miles per hour with gusts to 40 or 50. Strong winds mean more moisture being pulled off the lake. Persistent winds mean the bands don't move. They just sit there and dump. Third, the lakes are still open water. Early in winter, the lakes haven't frozen yet. Open water is necessary for lake effect. Once a lake freezes over, lake effect stops because the cold air can't interact with the water. Right now, the lakes are open, which allows maximum lake effect production. Fourth, the pattern is favorable for extended duration. This isn't a 6-hour event. This is multiple days. Bands have been producing since Tuesday in some areas. They're continuing through Thursday. Some areas will see additional lake effect Friday and Saturday. When events last this long, snow just accumulates and accumulates. Fifth, the bands are training. Training means multiple bands are moving over the same area, one after another. It's like having multiple snowstorms hit the exact same spot in succession. Each band drops more snow on top of what the previous band deposited. All of these factors together create an extreme event. Any one factor alone would produce significant lake effect. All 5 factors together produce record-breaking lake effect. Now, let me talk about the impacts of this much snow, because it's not just inconvenience, it's genuinely dangerous. Roof loads become critical when you start accumulating multiple feet of wet, heavy snow. A cubic foot of wet snow can weigh 15 to 20 pounds. A roof that's 20 feet by 40 feet with 2 feet of snow has 16 tons of snow on it. Some roofs can't handle that. Older roofs, flat roofs, and roofs that already have structural issues are most at risk. If you're in a lake effect zone and you've received multiple feet of snow, consider having your roof assessed. Professional snow removal from roofs is expensive but cheaper than roof collapse and the resulting damage. Signs of roof stress include sagging ceiling, cracking sounds, doors and windows that suddenly don't open or close properly. If you see these signs, get everyone out of the building immediately and call professionals. Travel is extremely hazardous during lake effect events. Even if roads are plowed, visibility can drop to near zero in seconds when you enter a heavy band. Snow rates of 2 to 3 inches per hour mean roads get covered again within minutes after plowing. Someone commented about the white-knuckle drive from Syracuse to Watertown. Between Central Square and Adams, visibility goes from decent to nothing in seconds. They've pulled over in Central Square multiple times and cried after getting through nasty squalls. That's real. That's terrifying. That's what lake effect does. If you must drive during lake effect, understand that conditions can change instantly. You can be driving in light snow with decent visibility, and suddenly you're in whiteout conditions. Slow down before you enter bands, not after. Increase following distance to 6 to 10 seconds or more. Turn on hazards to warn cars behind you. If visibility drops to near zero, get off the road if you can safely do so. Salt and plowing can't keep up when snow falls at 2 to 3 inches per hour. Plow drivers are working around the clock, but they're fighting a losing battle. Roads get covered again as fast as they're cleared. This is why authorities often advise against travel during extreme lake effect. It's not an overreaction. It's recognition that even with plows working constantly, roads are impassable. Power outages can happen when heavy, wet snow accumulates on power lines and trees. The weight brings down lines. Wind during the storm can blow down weakened trees. Repairs take time because conditions are so difficult. If you lose power during a lake effect event, you're dealing with two problems: no heat during cold weather, and potentially no way to get out because roads are impassable. This is why having backup heat and emergency supplies is critical if you live in lake effect zones. Isolation is also a real concern. If you live in a rural area that gets heavy lake effect, you might not see a plow for days. The main roads get priority. Secondary roads wait. If you're on a side road or rural route, you could be snowed in for an extended period. This is why lake effect zone residents keep supplies on hand, not just for a day or two, for a week. Food, water, medications, heating fuel, generator fuel. When you live in an area that can get 2 feet of snow overnight, you plan accordingly. Now, let me talk about community response during events like this because it's important. Plow drivers are working 20-hour shifts. They're exhausted. They're cold. They're dealing with dangerous conditions. And some of them are dealing with frustrated drivers who are angry that roads aren't clear. If you see a plow, give them space. Don't tailgate them. Don't pass them unless it's clearly safe. Don't get angry that your street hasn't been plowed yet. There are thousands of miles of roads and limited plows. They're doing their best. Someone specifically mentioned thoughts and prayers for plow drivers, propane delivery people, heating oil suppliers, and first responders. That's the right attitude. These people are working in brutal conditions to keep everyone else safe and warm. If you see a plow driver or delivery driver somewhere, thank them. Buy their coffee. Small gestures mean a lot when someone's been working all night in a blizzard. Neighbors helping neighbors is critical during events like this. Elderly neighbors who can't shovel, people with medical conditions, single parents overwhelmed by the amount of snow. A few minutes of your time helping someone dig out could make their entire day. Someone who loves lake effect snow commented that they've been out shoveling since 2 a.m. awaiting the next dumping. That's someone who's not just tolerating winter. They're embracing it. Can you have that attitude? Can you find something to appreciate even in difficult weather? Kids love snow. For them, this is an adventure. Snow forts, sledding, snowmen, school cancellations, they'll remember this winter for years. That perspective helps. What feels like a burden to you might be the highlight of their childhood. Now, before I close, let me talk about the forecast going forward because this event isn't over. Lake effect continues through Thursday for Buffalo, Syracuse, Erie, Watertown, additional accumulation of 6 to 12 inches likely in the persistent bands. Some areas could see another foot before it finally winds down. Friday brings a slight break for most areas. Lake effect diminishes as winds shift, but it doesn't end completely. Some areas will still see light lake effect Friday. Saturday, winds shift back to favorable directions for lake effect. Another round possible for some areas, not as intense as earlier in the week, but additional accumulation likely. By Sunday and Monday, lake effect finally decreases significantly as the pattern shifts. The lakes start to freeze over in shallow areas, which reduces lake effect production, and winds become less favorable. But here's the thing. This is January. Lake effect season runs from November through February, with peak intensity in December and January. This event will end, but lake effect will return. Multiple times. That's winter in the Great Lakes. If you live in a lake effect zone, you know this. This is your reality every winter. Some winters are worse than others. This winter is shaping up to be a big one. The pattern supports repeated lake effect events all month. Key points from this forecast. Syracuse set an all-time single-day snowfall record, 19.3 inches. This is historic. Lake effect is extremely localized, bands 5 to 15 miles wide. If you're in them, you get buried. If you're just outside, you see much less. This event is extreme because of large temperature difference, strong persistent winds, open lake water, extended duration, and training bands. Impacts include roof load concerns, impassable travel, power outages, and potential isolation for days. Community response matters. Help neighbors, thank plow drivers and emergency workers, show patience. Forecast shows lake effect continuing through Thursday, break Friday, possible return Saturday, diminishing Sunday and Monday. If you found this explanation of lake effect helpful, I'd appreciate it if you could like this video. Subscribe if you haven't. Lake effect season continues all month, more events likely. Share with people who don't understand why certain areas get so much snow. Education helps people appreciate what lake effect zones deal with. Comment your city and state, especially if you're measuring this snow. Psalm 147:16 and 17. He spreads the snow like wool and scatters the frost like ashes. He hurls down his hail like pebbles. Who can withstand his icy blast? Winter is powerful. Snow is relentless, but we endure. We help each other. We survive. And spring always follows winter. Stay warm, stay safe, and may God bless everyone digging out from this historic lake effect event. I'll see you in tomorrow's update.